Presenting data in e-commerce is a make or break skill. You might have the most valuable insights in the world, but if they are presented poorly, they'll be ignored and your hard work goes to waste. In this video, I'll share my top tips for presenting and visualizing e-commerce data in a way that grabs attention and doesn't bore your audience. After 7 years of delivering hundreds of presentations as a conversion rate optimization specialist, I've learned what works and what doesn't. Hello data people, I'm Robert from Clicks.ly and I'm here to help you understand and analyze data to make better decisions in e-commerce. And let me start with the most important tip. If there's one thing you should take from this video, it's this one. Imagine you are giving a presentation about your team's performance, but then a few hours before the presentation, it turns out that you are presenting the data to this audience. Would you still keep saying and showing the same information? Of course not. You would adjust it. By the way, I have no idea why would you be in this situation. I don't think the kids deserve to be tortured by this corporate stuff, but it's just to demonstrate the point, okay? So the first tip, make sure you know your audience. These are the questions you can ask yourself when preparing for the presentation. Who is my audience? Is that email marketing team, customer care, or maybe a whole company? What do they care about? Different departments focus on different goals. For example, email marketeers look at sign-up rates and click-through rates, whereas customer service maybe cares more about NPS score. And then you can ask, what is their skill level in this subject? Are you talking to newbies or experts? It will have a big impact on your presentation. For example, for newbies, you'll have to explain concepts, but for experts, they demand more in-depth information. And for the fourth question, what terminology do they use and are familiar with? Because let's face it, different stakeholders care about different metrics. So focus on the data that matters most to your audience. For instance, if you're presenting to senior management, highlight the strategic insights and recommendations that align with the company's broader goals. That's probably the better way to go. On the other hand, if you're speaking to the marketing team, dive deeper into campaign performance metrics and customer segmentation data. But even then, you need to know if you're presenting to the designers or the SEO people within the team, because these people will have very different goals. Also, if your audience isn't familiar with the data or terminology, avoid jargon and explain key concepts in just simple terms. So don't go telling them about a 5% click-to-open rate. No, keep it simple. If your audience is diverse and not experts on the subject, make sure to explain key concepts before showing any numbers. This can be just a sentence or two. Once you understand your audience, you can tailor your message to meet their specific needs and expectations. This way you won't lose anyone's attention because they don't understand or find it irrelevant for them. And for extra points, tease at the beginning of the presentation how the data will help them achieve their goals. Well, okay, we've talked about the audience enough now. So the second tip is so apparent, but I feel like many professionals don't think about it before they start creating their presentation. A few years ago, I attended 2 back-to-back presentations at a business conference. Both were given by experienced professionals and both were packed with data, insights, and examples. But the impact of each presentation was so different. The first presenter jumped right into the details. He had charts, graphs, case studies, you name it. The slides were packed with information and everything looked really actually convincing, but it was hard to figure out what the main takeaway was supposed to be. By the end, I saw a lot of data, but no clear idea what the presenter wanted us to do with it. As I looked around the room, I saw people scrolling through their phones or just staring blankly at the screen. You know, when you're just like thinking about your dog or your kids, but you're not paying attention to the presentation. You're pretending to, but you're not actually paying attention. On the other hand, the second presenter started by telling us exactly what she wanted us to take away. She said, by the end of this presentation, you'll understand why we need to overhaul our customer service strategy, and I'm going to show you 3 specific steps to make that happen. With that one sentence, she set the stage. Every slide, every graph, every story she told was connected to that goal. What she did brilliantly is when the topic got a bit technical, she always tied it back to the goal. And this way she was able to bring back the audience back to the topic. When she finished, the entire room was just buzzing with energy. And personally, I had so many ideas for applying them to my work. And that's how you want people to leave your presentation. And that's the second thing. Make sure your presentation has a clear goal or an outcome that you want your audience to walk out with. This goal will guide your presentation structure, graphs, and content. So I understand it sounds like a lot for a weekly presentation, but just ask yourself this: what is the single most important takeaway? Even if it's a regular meeting, always think about the goal. And actually, I think weekly presentations are a perfect place to practice the skill, because usually they are kind of low pressure situations with people you know. You can't get good if you don't practice it. So this is a perfect opportunity. And by the way, if you want to learn how to build persuasive presentations in 5 days, join my free email course where I will cover everything from structure and graphs to slide titles. You can join by clicking on the first link in the video description. Alright, so let's move on to the third tip. You know how in TV shows and movies they always show the city or the house before they show the main characters doing something inside the house. Why do you think they do that? Is that to make the show a bit longer? No, they show you the big picture first and then zoom in on the specific location, because this gives context. And that's the third tip. Start with the big picture and then zoom in on details whenever you need it. It provides a clear overview of the overall performance and key trends, making it easier for your audience to understand how specific data fits into the broader context. So you could present something like, hey, look at this overall number, like conversion rate comparison for a Facebook campaign. You see how it decreased month over month? So I got curious about this number and I started to dig deeper into this data, and now you can zoom in. This just sets you up so nicely to then go into the details. Okay, I think we have all violated the next tip. It's so natural to do, but you should not do it. Look at this slide. What would you say is the main point here? Exactly, it's hard to tell because there's so much stuff in it. What if instead it was like this? You see, first slide, second slide, and then the third slide. Do you see what I did there? Same information, just 1 point per slide. Don't try to cram it. Even if your manager says you only get 1 slide, make sure you don't stuff too much information in. By putting all data on 1 slide, you will overwhelm or just confuse your audience. And confusion means people will zone out and not listen. And if they are not listening, you can't provide value to them or influence them to do your project. So it's a total waste of everybody's time. Instead of showing a slide with several charts and 1 million bullet points, break it down. Have 1 slide for each metric and highlight the most critical insight. This way your audience can fully understand each slide without being overwhelmed. This also leaves more space for your graphs and the images to shine, and it's not surrounded by too much text or competing data. I recommend having 1 graph per slide, in some extreme cases 2 if they are really closely related or you're like kind of zooming in on the information. Okay, before going into the next tip, I have a question for you. Do you have that one friend whose stories just go on and they get sidetracked on and telling what they ate for breakfast yesterday in the middle of the story? And they will tell all family history of each character and so on. If it does sound familiar, isn't it really hard to understand what is the point of the whole story? You see, they think that by adding more details, they enriched the story, but actually it makes it more confusing and unfocused. The same thing applies to presentations with data. So that's the 5th tip. Don't get lost in details. I know if you're a specialist, it's really hard not to do this, but trust me, most people don't care about your A/B test statistical significance score or how you calculated your customer lifetime value. You can put all of that information in the appendix or in the footnotes if you really need them. That means don't put anything in the slides that is not directly supporting the message you're trying to convey. Your goal is to provide actionable insights to your audience. And let me just repeat that, actionable insights. That's the goal. And the data you show is just the proof of those insights. And the insights you give can be things like next steps, suggestions, recommendations, or plain simple just warning that shit is about to hit the fan. No matter what it is, make sure you give them something they can use in their job. Explain how it impacts them. All right, the sixth step is what will bring it all together in like a soup. And if you do it right, it will impress your stakeholders and they will leave your presentation energized and with new ideas. Let me show you what I mean by just presenting the same data in two different ways. So this is the first example. Okay, we ran a homepage analysis and we noticed that our website traffic increased by 25% this month, but the bounce rate actually increased by 15%. We think this is caused because of the main CTA getting 22% less clicks and people just leaving the page without clicking on anything. And we just recommend updating the homepage hero image to a contrasting color compared to the CTA we have now, because right now they just blend in. Or here's the second example. Why homepage hero banner needs urgent attention. This is because we noticed that website traffic to our homepage increased by 25% this month. But so did the bounce rate, as it went up by 15%. So more people were visiting, but they weren't sticking around. Clearly something wasn't working. That's when we decided to dive deeper into the data. We analyzed the click data and we noticed something a little bit strange. People don't seem to be clicking on our main CTA on the homepage because the main CTA has 22% fewer clicks than the previous month. So we had to meet up with the team and just analyze what's happened, what has changed in the past month on the homepage. And we noticed that the new homepage hero banner makes the CTA blend in with the background, so you almost don't see it. So that's why as a next step, we recommend modifying the image and making it a contrasting color to the CTA. But I'll leave the details with the design team. You see how the second example is more engaging. It also takes you on a small journey. Even though I showed you more slides, it felt lighter. Don't you agree? And that's the sixth step. Presentations are more engaging when they tell a story. And now storytelling in your presentation is an art form by itself. So it deserves its own video. And you can watch it by clicking on this video right here. And don't worry, it's simpler than you think. You just need to follow an easy framework and your presentations will naturally become stories.